My answer to that is that things will never be the same. Things will never be the same. The only plausible path to take after he's acquitted, which I know you will, would be a dialogue. What form the dialogue is going to take, we will see. But ideal, especially for me, this is not the official position of SPLM-IO yet, but I'm thinking that will most likely be a dialogue that include all the political forces in the country. This will allow us to reset.
All right, thanks, Dr. Isaac Gang, for being on Kurthi TV again. I appreciate your time. I know you're very busy, so we'll get into it.
Thank you. Glad to be back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, the conversation we had last time was really appreciated by people of all ethnicities and all political affiliations. They really appreciated it, and it was very informative. So thank you. And that's also what we expect today.
Good to hear that.
So I want to focus today on the trial. And to give us first, I want to begin the same way I began the other conversation about the health of Vice President Dr. Riek Machar and his co-accused, how they are now.
Yeah. Well, again, Dr. Gurung, thank you so much for having me. As I said previously, really appreciate this conversation, not just mine, but the ones that you had with all the guests. The health of Dr. Machar, as you see, is fairly good. Thank God. I think most of us were a bit concerned because he was invisible. No one was able to see him. And you hear that he was doing good. He was in high spirit. But until you actually see him, as we saw him in the court, you can only hope that he's okay. But based on what we all saw, he seemed to be doing fairly well. And it's really good to see.
Any sort of conversations that have been allowed by people, members of SPLM-IO in Juba, or people like you who have called them to talk to them?
They don't allow any contact of that sort at this point. I think the main contact that is allowed with him is with his defense team, and perhaps with the closest people to him. For example, Honorable Angelina, and even that contact only came about after he was indicted. Before that there was no contact. They basically want to keep him alone, keep him isolated. But with the indictment, now they allow him to see his defense team, and by the same time, also close relatives as his wife, and also the Minister of Interior, Madam Angelina. For us, we want to get in touch with him. There is still no way to get in contact with him, but through third parties, to other people, we're able to get a clear picture on how he's doing, how things are going for him, and certainly how much he's looking forward to being acquitted of these charges, or getting out of this uncalled for trial, so that he can go about his usual business.
And so the defense team is allowed unfettered access to him, because I know sometimes they may control how much access they have. So is the defense team allowed to have unfettered access to the vice president?
I would be careful calling it unfettered. I think they allow him sufficient access to them, and have a conversation. But I'm sure there are still some limitations to how much access that they can have. Perhaps they closely guarded, they closely watch. But certainly, I will not call it unfettered, but sufficient to say that. Suffice to say that he's able to see them.
Okay. So I know that they will not be able to do that. It's in the interest to make sure they control the narrative.
Of course, yes.
Okay, so I want to go to the trial. So from what you hear from SPLM-IO perspective and what you hear from the defense team, how do you think the trial is going? Because from people who are outside, I was recently talking to Abraham Awolich, and I talked to Dr. Jok Madud. And from the outside, we all know, it's sort of a show trial. As you said, it's unnecessary. So, but from the SPLM-IO perspective, there's a trial going on, and you have no choice. You have to be part of it. So what do you make of the charges and the trial as it is today?
I'm careful not to be very reasonably critical with understanding that could affect what's happening. But I'm still at liberty to say that the trial, as you know, Dr. Gurung, is politically motivated, and it's also turning out that it is tribally motivated. We knew from the start that there was ulterior motive to wanting Dr. Machar to go to Juba very early without security, guaranteeing his security, which was done by the president as well as the guarantors, that is Sudan, Ethiopia, and certainly the IGAD and AU. But even with that, we know, knowing the political dynamics of our country, that ulterior motive was always there. Dr. Machar, of all people, knew it very, very well. And in my conversation with him, he never shy away from saying that these people are planning to abrogate the peace agreement. To which, sometimes feel shocked that he would say that, and still, he was in Juba. But going to our feelings and our perspective about the charges and the indictment, these are political motivated. This was predetermined. From the time he went to Juba, they wanted to find a trigger. They wanted to find a trigger. They tried all kinds of things from very early on. They started by flagrant violation of the peace agreement. They started actually by overrunning the sites, to which Dr. Machar would simply write to IGAD at AU to report the violation. By the second year into the peace agreement, they overran half of SPLM-IO cantonment sites that were allocated as per the peace agreement. The SPLM-IO leadership will report the violation. CITISAM, which is the verification mechanism, will report the violation. Our JMAC of all of the mechanism would also report the violation. And yet nothing was done. And so when they continued to exhaust all means to trigger a cause, they began to be creative, finding other ways to get to that point. And Nasser incident was brewing. It was brewing for a good year, and when it get to the boiling point, they just decided that they're going to take the two generals that just recently defected from the SPLM-IO in Johnson Olun and CDR Kong Choranle to lead the I guess what people saw as the disarmament, which actually was a campaign to create a fight between the SSPDF and its allied militia on one end, and then with the White Army of Nasser on the other hand. And so when it was ripe for execution, they left Malakal, in an open. Everyone was seeing them, and Dr. Machar was every single step of the way on the phone with the president, was on the phone with all the other stakeholders to try to stop the advancement, because obviously that is a violation of the cessation of hostility. The forces cannot move their own forces from one location to another without agreeing with other forces and without obviously from the peace mechanism. So as this was happening, Dr. Machar was every single time trying to see that we stop it. When he realized that the president wasn't willing to stop it, he reached out to the local authorities and set up a committee to receive the SSPDF forces that were heading to Nasser. So as in our last conversation, they want to trigger a war. They did not want to go to Nasser peacefully. And so when the White Army reacted, because they knew they would, Dr. Machar also told them to go back, and they obliged, even though they weren't happy about that. But on their way back, they were bombarded. And so that's how the war started, Dr. Garang. They found the trigger to execute this plan, and this is to pin this whole incident that was initiated by them on Dr. Machar and his leadership, and they did. They detained them for 6 months without charges, which is illegal in South Sudan, as it is in any other country. And then when they were pressured to either release him, which was a consensus from all the regional powers, regional actors, with exception perhaps of Uganda and the international community, they decided that they're going to press false charges. It's starting with an announcement by the Minister of Justice of charges and charges that are laughable, manufactured, concocted, and even with no basis from the Constitution, as most people saw. They cite non-existent sections of the Constitution. In any country, that would have been the collapse of the case, but obviously because this is a planned targeting of a political leader, they continue with that. And so now we are in what can only be described as the kangaroo court. In all the 6 sessions, the defense has won hands down, but yet they give the victory to prosecution, obviously indicating that the fate of this case is predetermined. As of now, from the beginning, they set up this, Nuer inhabited counties to kind of create a conducive atmosphere for perhaps targeting of civilians, as is ongoing now. So all of this is planned. It's not random. It's not spontaneous. It's planned. And so now What we're witnessing is one of the biggest embarrassment for a country, that is to witness a political motivated court case that has no basis at all. That should not have been started.
So you make an argument that was made recently by Dr. Jokmadu that this trial is completely and unnecessary, and actually use the same word. It's embarrassing for the country. So
I agree.
I want to ask, there are two things. It's one thing for a defense to go for trial to defend the accused based on the merit of the case and based on the integrity of the court, that the court is impartial. That's one thing. And we all know that doesn't exist in South Sudan. So knowing that, how confident is SPLM-IO defense team in terms of going through that? Because that's one hurdle. It's one thing to defend the accused, but it's also another element, another step, another layer to work with the court that is impartial. So how confident are you in that dynamic?
It's funny because I think someone commented, and I was thinking about that. I couldn't help but agree that one of the frustrating things as a professional, whether you're law or natural science, it's to engage in a false process. What we're witnessing is a false process, the process that is rigged, for the lack of a better word, the process that is unprofessional. So the short answer is that the defense is frustrated. If you look at the makeup of the defense, these are the best that our country has to give. They know the laws in and out. And so just the first hurdle that they have to overcome, that they clearly won, which is the argument that this court has no jurisdiction over this case. This cannot be tried by this court because, as the Constitution says, the peace agreement, in the event that there's a conflict between the Constitution and the peace agreement is supreme. That language is as clear as sky. You and I are not lawyers, but we just need to be able to read. Mm-hmm. If you read it, it's very clear. And at that point, the case would have been closed. The defense, provided a very, very valid argument that what was happening in Nasser is a problem that cannot be swept under the rug. But the right means, the right mechanism to address it is the peace mechanism, because it is a peace violation. It is a violation of the peace agreement because there was war between the White Army and the SSPDF. And so that violated the peace agreement. And as such, the citizen is the one that was supposed to investigate it and then perhaps make recommendation, provide report that would then be taken up to the next level, which in this case would be the principals or perhaps RJMAC, and then all the way to IGAD. So that was not done. This when we realized that the case it's predetermined. The judges, where the president is the arresting authority and is also the jury and also the prosecuting authority. And so if you look at that, there's no, we have no hope that we can win this case. All of the laws on our side, the facts are on our side. They have no case to make. They have no charges to present. Now, my understanding is that they're pressuring governors in the Upper Nile region to come up with false witnesses to testify against the first vice president. And my sources are saying that one of the reasons perhaps the governor of the Upper Nile state was sacked was because he could not come up perhaps fast enough with such people because they don't exist. So you see, they made the biggest mistake. They say that they're going to make this case public, it's going to be on TV, which I think is a blessing for the country to see, because now they see the sham trial that it is. They see that the case has been rigged. They see that the law is not being followed. The court is compromised. The whole system is unnecessary, and so it's not playing out, and people are just laughing at us. But first, we use AI to try and cite a section of a constitution that don't exist, and now that we're engaging in this kind of group process, that is a marker of justice of our country. But at the end of the day, something we have to give. I think we don't know what's going to happen. But I think we will get pressure from the region, or they will get pressure from the region to drop the case because they have no case to make. Hopefully that happens sooner than later.
Because that's one of the questions you just touched on. That's what I wanted to ask. What the region is saying, what IGAD is saying, what AU is saying, having seen all this, and IGAD is the one that mediated the agreement, and they know all the provisions, and they know the specific provision that you cited, that in case of a conflict between the Constitution and the agreement, then the agreement will always be the supreme. So that's very clear. But IGAD, in terms of what is happening now, with the trial, and having seen this, I've not seen any forceful process by the region to come down on the government of South Sudan. I know there is this element of sovereignty that they use as a tool. It's become a tool that they use against the region, that, oh, this is an internal matter. Given this, the way the process came about, the agreement, and they are the witnesses, what is their position and what are they saying officially and unofficially?
I'm frustrated. And so when you asked this question, I was thinking about how to answer. Can I answer honestly?
Yeah.
And put IGAD in its place as we observe, or should I answer diplomatically? I think for the best interest of SPLM-IO, I'm going to answer diplomatically, because if I tell you the truth, I don't think they would want to hear it. IGAD is the one that pressure SPLM-IO and his leadership to go to Juba. In our last conversation, we made it very clear that the whole time that he was in Juba, he was never free. IGAD would say something almost as if doing nothing by saying something, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't pressure the government. It doesn't. It does. And so whether IGAD is going to be a body that will be taken seriously will be dependent on this case. This case is a litmus test not only for IGAD but also for AU and perhaps the international actors. If you can allow this injustice to take place for almost 6 years, someone that you asked to go to a place and then he's being detained essentially openly, and now he's being detained officially, and yet you don't do anything, you don't say anything. We don't have any hope that IGAD will come through. We can no longer count on IGAD to do right by SPLM-IO, by SPLM-IO. We just hope that all the actors will spring up and perhaps pressure IGAD to do its job. Its job is very simple. It is it play an oversight role. The peace agreement was negotiated under IGAD. It is the mediator. It is the arbiter. And so when there's a disagreement, there's a dispute, we thought that writing to IGAD, writing to RJ then IGAD, will be the resolution mechanism to follow. And Dr. Machar followed that to the T, and yet nothing is done. They will get the report. They would meet from time to time. They would condemn what the government was doing, but there's no action. It's almost as if where you're talking to your children. They do something each time, and you say, well, why you do that? And then there's no consequences. What would be the disincentive for them to stop doing it? And so what you see, it's a situation that will continue for a long time, and no one will come to our help. And so we hope that all the powers are able to come and tell IGAD to do his job. And his job is very simple. If something is wrong, fix it. Right? Fix it. You about the mediation, you're the one who told the first BP to go to Juba. Now he's being mistreated. He might as well be sentenced to death, in a kangaroo court, and right in your face, and doing anything. So we know what was happening. We know the promises. We know the guarantees. And so IGAD is 100% responsible for whatever happened to the first BP.
Okay, I want to ask something that has come up about what they're saying about Honorable Potkan. So it seems they want to deflect because is it because there are no direct charges, or the way they can link Dr. Riek Machar and the White Army and the incident in Nasser, that they're saying now Potkan was the one who financed it? So what do you make of that apparent shift in the weight to sort of not put Dr. Riek Machar as the primary accused?
They are embarrassed. They are embarrassed. They have no case against Machar. And so, they started to look at this as a tool to embarrass him. And so when they pull him up in the court and behind bars, just they thought that he's going to look little. When they discovered that him being actually there was going to play in his favor, they shift gears. They want to focus on Potkan. They have no case on either of them, because the burden of proof is on the prosecution. They fight, if Potkan finances the White Army, in what way? What proof do you have? And if that's the case, why is Machar in court? What role did Machar play in the incident? I talk about what we know publicly, because what he was doing was front-facing, was public, people can see it. But if you have things that you want to show that suggest otherwise, which I don't think they do, you can show them. But going to your question, they are shifting now because they have nothing on Machar. They don't have nothing to begin with. They hope that something will happen that will implicate him, but nothing is happening. And now that they see that he has a very strong defense team, they slowly shifting away to focusing on the other accused, Potkan being the main target now, saying that he financed the the White Army. This is the easier path to fall to because Port was a minister that has resources within his ministry, and so it's easier to say something like that. But to prove in what way did you finance the guns, what money, what resources, all of that in a credible court has to be proved. And I don't think anyone would be able to prove that. They wouldn't collect people randomly, threaten the people, and so they brought them in to testify against Port Kang. They call them witnesses. Witnesses of what? What did they see? What do they know? What are they going to say? So you're looking at a champ process playing right in front of us, and they begin to feel bad. Right now, they begin to feel embarrassed, knowing that they have nothing, and so they just throwing kind of spaghetti on the wall, hoping that it sticks. Nothing is going to stick because all of this had to be proven beyond reasonable doubt, and justice basically for someone to be proven guilty, they are presumed innocent until otherwise proven. And at this point, they're going to struggle proving, not just Machar, Port Kang or anyone else on the team that they've done something wrong. If you look at the testimony that they give, the people are wondering why they're there. Why are we being arrested? I've been here for 6, 7, almost going on 7 months. No one told me why I was being arrested. Port Kang was arrested because he financed the White Army. Why is Dr. Machar arrested? Why is Camilo arrested? Why is Dwaplam arrested? So all of these people are just sitting there waiting for the prosecution to come up with the reason why they're there.
Okay, so before I ask about the what SPLM-IO would do in case of the charge of guilty or acquittal, I want to ask first about what happened in 2014 when those of Dr. Majak, those of Pagana Mom, when they were taken to court. So you know what they did. They didn't have a case. So instead of dropping the charges, they used that legal term. They stay the charges. And then sometimes they go to the extent of saying they will pardon. So do you think this is another way to save face in case they don't have a case and they realize, okay, there's a lot of pressure or we're looking bad. We made this public, but it's not going on our favor. So is it possible for the president to say, I will stay the charges or let us find him guilty and then I will pardon him?
Those options are at his disposal. And we, most of us that follow the politics, especially the case of we call this the Juba 4, Dr. Majak, Oyai, and others, Pagan. So we're expecting two things. Precisely as you say, once they knew that nothing is sticking, they will do something. And what they will do, again, will be depending on one, what political capital are they going to get out of it? Their main wish is that Machar is out of politics. So we expect two things. Obviously, we're just speculating. This has to take place for this to be first. When they realize they have no case against him, they were trying to either stay the charges or, like you say, or as you say, find him guilty, and then the president will pardon him on the condition perhaps that he's not going to join politics. And at that point, I think other players will jump in. Perhaps IGAD will have something to say. AU will have something to say. Others will have something to say. And most important, SPLM-IO will have something to say, because that's not how you defeat a political rival. You don't defeat them by arresting them or by tiring them prematurely. That's our expectation. They're going to have to do something to save face. And it's going to be one of those two realms. Either they acquit him, or if acquitting him means he's going to go back to his position, things are going to go back to normal. Perhaps they don't want that. Their biggest fear for the man is for him to be seen in politics. If they have a way to completely get rid of him, they will. It's just that it's difficult because everything is playing right in public eye. What can you do? You're trying to implicate him on false charges. You try to hurt him. You try to humiliate him, and all of this each time doesn't seem to work. And so, at some point, they're going to say, "Man, we tried. We cannot get this man. Let him just be to be free, and let's go to election and see if we can defeat him." This is the only way that our country that the can go back to normal. If this predetermined charges, concrete charges are dropped, and then these leaders are released, and obviously presume the peace agreement, prepare the country for election, and then defeat them in election. So we can get out of it, transition. these games, these sideshows, these shenanigans, if you want to call them that, are not going to help us because the people are tired of them and they see it play right out, right in public. They want to stop it and they need to do so now.
Okay, so something Abraham Awolich said recently, and I want to connect that with how is SPLM-IO getting ready? So in case Dr. Riek Machar is acquitted, it's still going to be difficult because there are members of the SPLM-IO and SPLM-IO army that have taken up arms. So what is the eventuality? Like how are you getting ready to deal with that in case he's acquitted or he's found guilty? So what is the future looking like for SPLM-IO inside the country? Because you are a political party at the end of the day. So how would you deal with that?
My answer to that is that things will never be the same. Things will never be the same. The only plausible path to take after he's acquitted, which I know you will, would be a dialogue. What form the dialogue is going to take, we will see. But ideal, especially for me, this is not the official position of SPLM-IO yet, but I'm thinking that will most likely be a dialogue that include all the political forces in the country. This will allow us to reset, perhaps come up with a formula that will take us to election, without having to just depend on our axis, because at this point, the government has completely abrogated it, and for it to get back to normal, it's going to be a process. We're not going to just wake up one day and say, okay, well, they acquitted the first VP, let's go back to Juba. Most of us cannot go back to Juba because at this point, it's not safe, it's not conducive, it's not ready for peace. There has to be some other process that will be followed that will allow not just the SPLM-IO but all the political forces to get back to the country and then get the country ready for election and then get out of the transition.
I like, because you've talked about this before, the question of dialogue, and that is something missing from the government side, the idea of dialogue, because at the end of the day, that's what South Sudanese want, but they have completely sidestepped it. It looks like it is inimical to whatever they want to do. So, but I like the idea of dialogue because things, as you said, will never be the same again. So from
They don't like dialogue for two reasons. Dialogue allows others to come into the political process. And most importantly, dialogue allows Machar to get back into the political process. So they don't want that. The reason why they abrogate the peace agreement is because they want things the way they are. They enjoy the status quo. They want to be a one-party system. They want to be a police state. No one can challenge them. If they strike fear in the citizens and the citizens just accept their plight as it is, and then no one will say no to whatever they're doing. And so that's their wildest dream, to have a one-party system, to have a police state that has no legitimate opposition. The kind of opposition they want are the kinds of Elijah Lamar opposition. That is pretty much part of the government. This is the kind of opposition they want. They don't want a serious opposition that can challenge them. So that's the goal, and that's why you see them sidestepping the concept of dialogue, because it means bringing all the people on board. But they will not be able to change it, because if you look at what's happening now, and I want to say this very, very slowly so our people can hear it, the people are tired of what the government is doing. At first, they were hoping that if we persecute the SPLM-IO leadership, one, there will be no competition. So SPLM-IO leadership will persecute it, perhaps Nuer civilians are bombarded and traumatized, and so anyone even in the future who dares to say kailora, which means nonsense or enough is enough, will think about what's happening now, and then they will think twice. But what they have forgotten that this is not in the minds of our people. People are tired of tribalism, especially young generation want a country that doesn't see tribes.
True.
They want a country that sees merit. They want a country that sees talent. They want a country that sees professional etiquette. And so, if you look at what's happening now, they thought by just targeting the Nuer, the Nuer leaders. SPLM-IO obviously is a national organization. We have a lot of leaders that are in the government. If you look at the 8, they are 100% from one ethnic group. And so some people think that this is not just a politically motivated trial, it's also a tribal motivated trial. Whether that's true or not, you look at the facts and then make your own conclusion. But the bottom line is that the people of South Sudan says no. If you look at the outspoken people are not SPLM-IO. If you look at the press releases condemning the false charges and the false indictment of the first VP, you have UPA had one of the strongest press release against in that act. You have not released one of the strongest statements to condemn that act. You have individuals, people like Jong Jok, saying the same thing, Abraham Wolich. These people are not Nuer, and so if you look at what's happening, Sudanese say what we're doing is not the direction that we need to go. It's not good for our country. You need to stop it. And so now the burden is on the government to say we are working for the interest of the country, and so we'll listen to people, or we're working for our own interest, and that we don't care what you say. But at the end of the day, the people have spoken, and that no matter how powerful the government is, no matter how much well resources it is, at the end of the day, you will be defeated.
So I want to ask the last topic I want us to address is what you touched on, the fallout. And you've already talked about this. Some people say this has nothing to do with ethnicity, the fact that these are all eight, gentlemen from one ethnic community is just political. Some people say, look, we live in a country that is ethnically divided. And also the way the leadership went about this presupposes that there's an ethnic dimension to this. So do you think this is going to exacerbate the ethnic relationship, or can we say no, these are just politicians? Is it something that is realistic to do?
It's not realistic, and this is why before they indicted the eight, they profiled the Nuer counties. And I think this is the mistake. This is the biggest mistake about thinking for a short-term gain. If they wanted to disguise their intentions, they would have profiled the whole country, right? Because profiling doesn't mean there's 8 against and 6 for, or 9 against and 6 and 4 for. You could go to Bargazat, for example, and say of all 16, how many counties are there, all 16 are pro-government and 0 is against the government. That's also profiling. So if they did that, the people would have said, okay, you know what, this process is, is a countrywide process. And so, there will be no tribal undertone when people see it. But if you profile one region, and not just one region, but not even one region, you profile just the counties of one ethnic group. Once you did that, you followed that by bombarding some of those counties, by displacing civilians. And then you follow that by indicting 8 people from that ethnic group. Mm-hmm. Even an AI would know something's wrong, leave alone people. So when we think about the implication of this, yes, you have to be really blind to not connect whether that's true or not. I think, obviously the burden of proof is on the people thinking that it's tribal, but, looking at the facts and what's happening, you can actually call this circumstantial evidence. It's clearly something of that sort is happening. Now, here's what I'm really hoping. The people of South Sudan cannot allow the government to succeed, because if we now see it as a case of Nuer being targeted, which it is, and we just, say, okay, so anyone that's a Dinka that's part of the president's tribe is guilty of this. And then you look at people like yourself, you look at people like so Ajel and all of these people are not Nuer, but these are the most vociferous, the loudest critics of what's happening in South Sudan. So for this reason, and that's why I said that people have awakened. The government may tribalize the process, mm-hmm. but the people say, no, we don't want you to do that. You can try that at your own risk, but we want this country to be one. We don't want to look at this country based on Bari, Nuer, Dinka, mm-hmm. or any other tribe. We want South Sudan country. So at this point, what they're pursuing is tribal, but what people are saying, what people are pushing back with is that, we disapprove what you're doing. If you persecute the Nuer community, if this is your intention, stop it. We don't want that.
That's right. And the other thing is also, we've seen that if you go against this government, it doesn't really matter where you're from. They will arrest you, they will come after you. So that's why it's usually good to see the system works for everyone. So if we say the system is being used against Dr. Riek Machar and his co-accused, and it's not me, so I don't really care. What if that system is used against you tomorrow? You want that system to be impartial so that it protects you. But if you don't care today and that system comes after you tomorrow, we will not have someone to blame because you didn't care. So
absolutely.
What is your last word to maybe IGAD? Because they are the mediators. They should have been really instrumental in making sure this sham trial did not go forward. And it's destructive. Even if Dr. Riek Machar and his co-accused are found not guilty, it's going to leave a bad taste in the mouths of people. It's politically bad and ethnically also bad. So what do you tell IGAD and AU?
Well, thank you. I have two messages, one to IGAD and one to our people. Is being tested. I will listen. I was in New York during the UNGA week, and I was listening to a speech by William Ruto, the president of Kenya, who obviously played a key role in what we're discussing. He connect the League of Nations, the very first organization that was formed in place of the United Nations, and why it failed. IGAD is at a critical stage. Anytime an organization or individual is tested, how you react to the test is how you will be judged. And that also dictates your future survival. What we're seeing in South Sudan is a rare case that will be, this will be use case for a lot of future court cases, future situation in the country. And so if IGAD continues to be complicit, because what really disturbs me, Garang, is each time the president does something, especially something major, we've seen that it was either after the visit of the Peace and Security Council of AU or his return from Addis Ababa when he attended the GERD inauguration. So people are saying, what are they telling him to embolden him to make this decision that are obviously adverse to the peace agreement, that are adverse to the South Sudanese state? We don't know. Maybe these are random. He just want us to make the connection, perhaps the wrong connection. But in any event, the look of things, the way that things look, is very poor. So IGAD has a very big question to answer. Is it going to be relevant or not? And the only way that it can be relevant is how it addresses the case of Dr. Machar and the SPLM-IO, because they are the one who told him and his leadership to go to Juba. They should be the one to be in the forefront in stopping this mockery of justice, this mistreatment that has taken place for all these years. And if they don't do that, they cannot blame anyone in the future if no one takes them seriously. So I hope someone does see this message. I hope they realize it. I hope they think about it. But obviously, the South Sudanese case is going to be a litmus test for IGAD. And I hope they pass this test. To our people, we've come a long way as people. I think one thing that really taught me, as a member of the Red Army is we call this camaraderie. You meet as a group of kids, you don't know each other. It's kind of like being a teammate of somebody. You get on a team, your thought process as individual changes. Now it changes to a team. What the team does is basically your first priority compared to what you want to do as an individual. When we were in the bushes, we never thought about tribe. The only person that you care about is the person next to you. Most times we speak Arabic, obviously broken Arabic, because most of us did not go to Arabic school, but we understand each other. Some of us, were able to learn each other's language. You speak Nuer, some speak Dinka, you speak a few languages, but the majority of people at the time were from the Dinka and the Nuer community. So that experience, even though I've been in the US for 30 years, has never been replaced. When I think about the best of times, despite this being the difficult time of my life, this was always the brightest part of my experience, knowing that you have people that see you as a brother, and it's not literally a brother from another mother, and they care about you. They want you to be okay. At this stage, if most of us are around 40s, we're approaching 50. So I want to say we make up half of if not more of this country. And so what we do is going to dictate what our country becomes. What we think, what we say will dictate what country we're going to have. And so just to draw from that experience, if we can get back to that and know that no tribe can rule this country without the other 63. No tribe can surrender. No tribe can be subdued. If you look at the tiny Murle tribe that was fighting the government, and this was during the best of time, they were not able to defeat the Murle community. And so no tribe can be bombed into submission. No tribe can be intimidated. No tribe can be segregated. No tribe can be sent to exile. All of the 64 tribes need to get together and make sure that the country that our forefathers fought very, very bravely before is safe, and it cannot be safe with the status quo. The status quo, obviously, I say a lot of times that it has no future in our country. This cannot be the country that we want. This has to change, and I really believe that our best days are ahead.
Thank you very much. This is actually a nice way to end it. And I hope our people hear this to sort of go back to that way where we we acknowledge our ethnic differences in terms of culture, in terms of language, in terms of tradition, but then we still live together as people belong to the same country. So I thank you again for being here. I'm confident we'll talk again.
I'm sure I wouldn't be back. I love doing this. Absolutely.